Yeah, that was a sound check, sorry. We start in 10 minutes, so stay here because we start in 10 minutes. Thank you.
But I didn't think it was going to be this bad.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep. We brought the rain with us on what was meant to be a 2-night stay in Amsterdam, with it just being over an hour's flight from the UK. But as our luck would have it, the UK weather followed us. But like this guy right here, we wouldn't let a bit of rain ruin our day, apart from all the fun outdoor activities we had planned. Anyway, back to Centraal. Initially, the day started off pretty promising. We managed to actually walk around and explore the Damrak, the main street where you arrive into Amsterdam from the station. Just a side note that this is nowhere near an unofficial guide to Amsterdam, since we didn't get to do close to half of what we planned. However, as touristy as it might sound, nothing gives you a whistle-stop overview of a city like a tour bus, or in this case, a tour boat. And that's what we did, after reassuring ourselves that there were no swimming requirements. So into the retro-looking river vessel we went. The boat tours are some of the best ways to see more of the city, especially with the tourist-filled streets. They all tend to start around Central Station, but the routes could differ depending on the traffic and/or boat sizes. What all this would give you is a much better view along the canals, characterized by the very crooked and narrow houses. I guess it's a little like Venice, but in the north, where most of the infrastructure was built off wooden piles to sit above the canal waters. The narrow houses were mainly to do with historical expansion when plots of land in the early to mid-1600s were circa 5 to 7 meters wide. This was to enable the maximum plots along the waterfront with access to the canal. As you can imagine, back then ships and barges were the most important mode of transport of not only people but goods too. I was clearly one of the few listening on the boat tour. Now, if you look at the top facades of these houses, you would notice that they all appear to have hoist beams sticking out just above the attics. We talked about the houses being narrow, which meant stairs were also super narrow. The way they got around this was hoisting up their goods from the streets with a rope attached to these hoist beams. The attics would then be used to store goods like spices and tobacco. Also turns out that my boat sound can be a good excuse for being late to work. Whilst I had an itinerary for the best food spot in Amsterdam, they were all dotted around the whole city, but nowhere near our current location, which meant we kind of had to succumb to a lot of the tourist traps. And so we stopped at Dutch Pancake Masters, which actually wasn't all that bad in terms of atmosphere. The fellas on the wall art were particularly impressed with my dad's durag and long coat getup. After deciding which item on the menu our lactose-intolerant selves could tolerate, we settled with the crepes. If I wasn't going to get to the markets for an authentic stroopwafel, I at least would have had it in some sort of form in Amsterdam. We're now at the Stedelijk Museum, a museum for contemporary and modern art. Somewhere we didn't necessarily plan to initially go with all the other options in the Museumplein, such as the Van Gogh or Mokko Museum. But yeah, the family unanimously decided to come and see a collection of exhibitions from various artists, because we are clearly keen museum goers. But it wasn't always easy to make sense of some of the works. In this instance, we just needed to get out of the rain, and it worked out pretty well. Side note, make sure you book in advance for the Van Gogh Museum. Couldn't believe how long the line was when we arrived, and that was for pre-booked tickets. Someone who seemed to take the works of art in his stride was my dad. Not the usual archetype for an art lover, aka it has to be medicine, law or engineering. If you know, you know. But he spent most of the time reading the art descriptions. Even Terence got into some of the action. Notice the kind of art he's drawn to. Let's just say he prefers a colouring book to a novel. Let's see what he thinks. How enlightening. We did have some collective favourites. The main ones being art depicting the range of cultures that colonialism brought the artists back then into contact with. We're talking sculptures from the Bamileke in Cameroon, and the Edo in the Kingdom of Benin in Nigeria, both from the mother and fatherland. There was also, of course, the weird and wonderful. Remember at the start of the video when I mentioned that there was a silver lining to our Amsterdam trip? Well, hidden away in the pretty touristy restaurant district of Museumplein is a brown cafe establishment. Brown cafes being the equivalent of, say, a UK pub or local bar that comes alive at night. This is Jazz Cafe Alto, the only walk-in bar to offer live jazz every night of the week in Amsterdam. And you really can't miss it with a big saxophone up front and neon sign. And the crowds, of course. We were actually going to head back into Centraal before making the spontaneous decision to head here after our museum venture. Inside the bar it got very cozy. I mean, it was expected, but you'd be lucky to get any seating the first time round. And mine even came with the obligatory fun-loving Dutch lady demonstrating how to let your hair down. I think she knows the bassist on stage. These are the kind of friends you need in your life. Also turns out it was the bassist's birthday, so in true jazz style we improvised a quick, very British sounding a cappella happy birthday.
It's his birthday too. Oh, his birthday! It's his birthday. Yeah. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
here is the birthday boy. I guess it comes at no surprise that people here tend to be very friendly with their rather open-minded nature. And boy, was this the place to be social. Considering you can stroll into a bar for free and watch these very talented musicians put on a good show, I think it's definitely worth your time to make a stop here if you ever visit Amsterdam. Just remember to spend some money at the bar to support the establishment. Something you might have noticed is that the entire video mainly consists of music from this evening here at the Jazz Cafe Alto. It really did make the perfect soundtrack to our not so straightforward trip. A lot of things didn't necessarily go to plan with the weather, but I guess like jazz, the trip was best when we improvised.